Cool.
Okay.
Yep. Makes sense.
Hit me.
Well,
Yep. It's actually not that hard.
wait, but if I hit you with both waves, does it kill you?
Give it a shot. Wait, hold on, let me cancel super.
What the fuck?
Welcome back, Guardians, to another Dream Team video. I'm your humble host, Meesum777, and hey, if you're anything like me, you've at some point in your life, or maybe right now, play games like Super Smash Bros. Or any other type of fighting game, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, etc., and you're familiar with the term tech. Now, what tech is, if you don't know what it is, it's just essentially a very specific series of button inputs that can allow you to do things that you couldn't normally do. It allows you to open up either some damage numbers, like to reduce or to increase some damage, or just a good way to mix up your gameplay. As a whole, the gist is, it makes you better at the game. Tech rides the line between being a bug and being something intended. A lot of this stuff, I will say, is probably at some point a bug, but it's so difficult to pull off, and it's not overly powerful, right? It's not like infinite super on Dawnblade. It's just some small stuff here and there that I would say that this is definitely not considered bug territory, at least not something that we should be considering patching. But anyway, this will be specifically focusing on the Voidwalker subclass. I might do the other subclasses for the Warlock later in future videos, depending on how this video gets received. There is some other tech you can do specifically with Dawnblade that's pretty cool, but this one is just going to be focusing on Voidwalker. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff involving Blink as well, so if you're not comfortable with Blink, don't freak out, don't worry. We're going to be explaining a lot of the base mechanics as we're going along here. Now, how this video is going to work, we're going to start off with some really easy stuff to do that's not terribly useful, and then move on to the much more difficult stuff to do, like the much more advanced inputs and timings and so forth, that is a lot more useful. So, with all that groundwork being laid, let's start ourselves off here with the very first of the tech that we can do, called a chaotic approach. If you guys, by the way, if for any of these you come up with a better name, drop it down in the comment section down below. These just are just off the top of my head. There's no community names for any of these. I'm not even sure if the community is aware of a lot of these things. But anyway, if you got a better name, drop it down in the comment section. So, moving on. Chaotic approach. This one is extremely easy to pull off. And you probably at some point have maybe thought about doing something like this, but I'm just going to put it into official canon so I can put my copyright on it. Bam! There you go. TDT Productions. Anyway, so this is super easy. All you need is the Warlock exotic, the controversive holds, right? And you need, obviously, any of the subclasses will allow you to hold your grenade. You need a grenade. And you need, preferably, a melee charge. Chaotic approaching is a way for you to take a corner, take an angle, take a lane safely, or at least have some type of advantage. The Chaos Accelerant perk on the controversive holds reduce damage by 20%. That can open up a lot of pretty significant breakpoints for certain types of weapons and engagements and abilities. The first thing that can immediately jump to mind is with a 20% reduction, you can actually survive a shoulder charge. A lot of them, not all of them, a good portion of them. You can survive them with just a sliver of health. And with the Chaos Accelerant, you can actually cancel out of it into a melee. Now, if you've got a high mobility like I do, as you're seeing on screen right now, you can actually be pretty mobile with this. Now, if you happen to be up close with somebody, more than likely they're going to try to exchange a melee with you. Now, assuming this melee doesn't deal more than, say, 150 damage or so, such as Bottom Tree Striker, more than likely you can absorb that first blow and then immediately cancel into a melee. They'll hit you with a second blow and not quite kill you, and then you can follow up and finish them. It's a good way to essentially approach. Moving on, Warp Blink. This is an extremely easy to perform tech, but it does require you to run Astrocyte Verse. I actually didn't know this until I started testing with it, but you absolutely have to have Astrocyte Verse in order to make this work. Astrocyte Verse allows you to blink a little easier, it keeps it up, and just generally, it essentially gives handling buffs to Blink itself, which is a little odd to think about, but that's kind of what it does. And that is one of the things that you can do with it is called a Warp Blink. I will do this a lot of the times. It allows you to cover an extremely large gap in a very short amount of time. You are able to essentially Omewa yourself behind enemy lines very efficiently while you're in super. All you have to do in order to perform it is start moving the direction that you're going with a warp, and then immediately coming out of the warp, press the blink button. Blink will 100% follow wherever your momentum is, and it is influenced by where you're looking. So if you're looking that direction and moving that direction, your blink will be nearly horizontal. You can continue this up by canceling that into another warp, and cancel that again into another blink. The timing is very easy. It's just warp, blink, warp, blink, warp, blink. Get a feel for it. Like I said, you do have to have Astrocyte Burst. It can be extremely useful to close gaps and get out of situations. There are certain supers that the Nova Warp does not trade well with, and that's a good way for you to get the heck out of dodge. Next ability here, also requiring the Astrocyte Burst, is the double blink. Now, this was something that required a little bit of experimentation because I had done it on accident before, but I wanted to make sure I could do it consistently. So here's how it works. With the Astrocyte Burst on, you're able to, like I said, how Astrocyte kind of carries that, like it increases the handling speed of blink. What it allows you to do is if you are looking up into the air, which helps influence your momentum a little bit more in an upwards fashion, if you blink at a basically 45 to 60 degree angle, you know, kind of upwards in a way, a typical blink that you would see, you are able to, if you're continuing to look up, blink again and cover a large gap in a horizontal manner. I'm able to go from one side of Banner Falls little balcony to the other side of Banner Falls balcony in 2 blinks. Now on top of that, you can also do what I'm doing on screen here is with a higher sensitivity, do essentially the first part of the double blink tech and then bring your camera down and then blink again. You'll be able to throw off enemies' aim because they are not going to be expecting you to blink a second time in the air. And again, you can Omewa your way right behind them, shotgun them in the back of the head, melee, whatever you want to do to them while you're in their inappropriate don't touch me space. Like I said, the timing is a little tight, but once you figure it out, it's not too bad. The big thing to keep in mind is that you have to make sure that you influence the direction by looking up in order to help flatten out that momentum a little bit as you're starting to travel downward. Now, here's another one that's super cool. You can actually essentially third-person blink. What I'm calling this here is the blink bomb. What it allows you to do is that once you, let's say, so I'll slow down the footage here so you can take a look at this here. So let's say you're approaching an area, right? And you want to get the maximum chance of getting a really like a solid Nova Bomb, or really throw off your opponent's aim and be ready to go with, say, Nova Warp. What you can do is jump, press the blink button, and the timing is tight here again. But as soon as you begin to move, like the first, there's only a few frames of it, as soon as your character starts to begin the momentum transfer using blink, immediately press your super button. Now what you'll be able to do with this is essentially your blink will become third person. You won't be tangible, meaning you won't be able to be hit during the blink, so you can essentially cut off a few frames of where you could possibly take damage in your blink, in your super I should say, by making it so that you're not even visible because you're in blink, and then you'll come out of it still in third person mode, either throwing a Nova Bomb, going into Nova Warp, or whatever it may be. It's a very good way of making your opponents have a very hard time to snipe you out of something. And similarly, you can actually chase your Nova Bomb if you've got like Astrocyte on, you've got a lot of speed, and it can be an excellent way to vary an approach. If you just need to just siege charge an area, you just want to guarantee a push into an area, you can use this technique to give yourself some momentum to help you push into a lane. And moving along, we're getting into the final 3. So if you have hung out this far, I just want to drop this in here. If you've hung out this far, you've enjoyed what we've got so far, be sure to leave it a like and drop us a subscribe. It would be very helpful to us, a lot of encouragement. We just hit 250 subs, and that's awesome. We will see a 250 sub special come out soon. But anyway, if you've gotten this far, you like it, help us out, drop us a sub. All right, let's move on. These final 3 are a lot more challenging, but they have a lot more application. Starting off with the false blink. Now, this is primarily used in sweat situations, maybe 1v1 or like 3v3 at best situations. So if you're playing an opponent who is expecting you to blink or is like listening for your blink in order to react accordingly, and you've kind of conditioned them to expect you to blink aggressively onto them, you can do what's called a false blink. Now, a false blink essentially is a way of doing the full blink and the blink animation, the blink sound and everything, but doesn't actually move you anywhere. Not anywhere significantly. The better you are at this technique, the less you'll move, which is actually what you want. Because the way that this works, as you're seeing on screen here, if you hold forward on the stick and just do a gentle hop, just a short hop, not a full secondary hop, a short hop. Once you reach the apex or the peak of your jump, release the stick. Do not pull back on the stick or else you'll blink upwards on the second jump. Release the stick and press the blink button again. The closer you are to the ground, the less of a distance you'll travel. So once again, you're going to run, do a normal short hop, release the stick as you approach the peak of your jump, and then press the blink button as you're near to the ground. This will cause the full blink sound. It'll look like the full blink animation. And if you've got astrocyte and like a good handling like I have here, you'll see that my weapon is instantly ready to go. It's a great way to cause your opponent to overreact to where you're going to be, allowing you to get some follow-up shots. This will require you to already have conditioned them a little bit, so this is why I say this is a little bit on the harder end, but this can be extremely useful in extremely sweaty situations because they will not expect you to be just running straight for them after they've flicked their aim in another direction to try to catch you. All right, last few here, last two. This one is very useful, and I'm surprised I actually haven't seen any videos on it. Maybe they're out there, but maybe they're not. I don't know. It's called rift canceling. Rift canceling is actually not that hard to do. The timing on it is tight for normal melee fights here that we're going to be doing. So it's pretty simple. Melees do 100 damage, so 2 melees would kill a guardian. What you can do with the rift is you gain just a very, very slight amount of damage resistance, as well as obviously regenerating your health. And if you're a Warlock main in the Crucible, you will know that that melees are actually on Warlock are actually just a wee bit slower than the other classes. It was addressed in the last patch notes. It just gave them more range in order to help them kind of combat with it without making everything really the same, which is cool. But there are still times when you are awkwardly close situations within Titan punching range or Hunter punching range that you just don't have the luxury of trying to outspace another melee, right? You're staring the other person in the eye and you just got to make something happen. So, rift canceling. What rift canceling allows you to do is it allows you to, at the very worst, trade with a melee that is faster than you. Now, it is important to note that that melee only is faster than you. It does not have any extra damage. So if your other opponent has like the bottom tree striker, which does 150 damage, you're still gonna die, right? There are still situations where you're just not gonna be able to do this tech because the damage that the other person gives you is just too much to tank through. But how this tech works. So you're in that awkward engagement as you're seeing on screen there. Both of you punch at about the same time. And as soon as you hit that punch button, immediately hold down your rift button. Now for me on console, it's as easy as just holding down my right stick. I'm on the Puppeteer button layout. Perhaps if you're on PC, you've already got it pre-bound and that's easy as well. But what this allows you to do is when your opponent follows up with a second melee to try to kill you, you'll actually survive it, allowing you to get that second melee of your own off, killing them. Now, in a more practical situation, which you'll see here, you'll have a melee charge up, especially if you're running Middle Tree Nova Warp, which will actually push your target away a little bit and cause a little bit of extra damage. The little bit of extra confusion is all you need. All your opponent has to do in order to lose this melee fight is be just a tad slow, just a little bit discombobulated with their melee timing in order to essentially lose that fight every single time. So this does require your opponents to mess up, but like I said, at the very worst, the worst case situation, assuming you both are dealing the same amount of melee damage and you're in that awkward engagement, is you'll at the very worst trade. You'll go kill for kill, blow for blow, you'll both die, right? Whereas normally you would have died outright. This will allow you to at least trade with that opponent. All right, the last one, what that opening clip was all about. This is what I'm calling dimensional immunity or demunity. If you would like, again, I don't know if these names are any good, so just come up with something in the comments section. I don't know. I don't get paid enough to do this. So, dimensional immunity. So, this is only for the Nova Warp subclass. When you're in the Nova Warp, you actually have the ability to, kind of phase shift left and right, up, not really up and down, I shouldn't say that, forward and back, left and right. This is typically used to help get around the map. And like we talked about with the warp blinking, you can use this to cover really large gaps in a short period of time. But what isn't explicit about the way that this works is that while you are essentially invisible, and I'll slow the frames down here so you can see it, while you are invisible and, essentially not able to be targeted or anything, you are not actually gone per se. It's not like you've actually gone into another dimension. Bungie has essentially just removed your character model and made you invincible. Now, there are only like a few frames of invincibility. And in those frames of invincibility, you can do stuff like survive something that you shouldn't normally be able to. We tried this on a couple different supers to try to survive, like a thunder crash or a tether or whatever it may be. We are able to relatively consistently get the blade barrage to work because the explosion on the blade barrage is what actually kills you, not the knives themselves. And the timing on the actual explosion is relatively consistent. So all you have to do with blade barrage specifically, we'll talk blade barrage and then you guys can experiment on your own. Wait for the blades to hit you and then give it like a half a second count, and right when the blades go to explode, warp. I would recommend warping twice, and I would recommend warping towards your opponent in order to help close the gap a little bit easier. What this will allow you to do, if you time it correctly, is you will take no damage from the explosion. You'll only take the damage from the initial impact of the knives. If your timing is messed up a little bit, you might survive a knife or two that has exploded on you. And another thing that is interesting to point out is that if you are with somebody who has very good ping, like the friend I was doing with here had a little bit of ping on him. He's on a little bit further on me, like geographically. It's a lot easier on people who have worse ping. I don't know why, because the explosion and everything seems exactly the same, but that's just the way it is. But even with that, even with my friend who had really good ping compared to like with me, we still were able to get it to happen on a pretty consistent basis. The timing is a lot tighter, but it still will work. Now, this one again is difficult, and just like rift canceling, at the very worst, you die, right? Which would have happened anyway. Best case scenario, you survive with a decent amount of health left and are able to clean up the team that was expecting you to burn out off of the blade barrage or whatever it may be. Like I said, if you are able to experiment and find some more stuff that actually works with this, drop it down in the comment section down below. So anyway, that's the gist. Let me know if you're able to get any of these to work for you, or how difficult you think these are, or if you think my scaling is a little bit off. So let us know what you want to see next with the Titan or Hunter tech, and we'll see what we can do. Hopefully this video gets received well, because I think this is pretty cool. I think Destiny has a lot of potential to be a very competitive game, and I think stuff like this can be super interesting to see on a high tier level of play. So hopefully this video gets received well. Anyway, be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, and all that other YouTube bull crap that we're supposed to do. Stay indoors, don't get sick, and have yourself a great rest of your day. God bless, and deuces!